France has a long history of political satire and caricature. In the mid-19th century, one notoriously provocative weekly repeatedly depicted King Louis Philippe as a pear. The artist was charged with outrage against the person of the king and fined, but soon enough, doodles of pears could be found all over Paris. 184 years later, two Islamists forced their way into an office in Paris and gunned down the director, cartoonists, columnists, editors, copy editors, a bodyguard and a building maintenance worker, a police officer and a travel writer. It was the satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo, all because they published cartoons mocking Muhammed. But they remained defiantly irreverent despite repeated attacks and threats. With the trial beginning only now in 2020, they republished the cartoons. And so it was that a young Pakistani man felt entitled to go to their old HQ and attack two people with a meat cleaver. Or that a teacher, Samuel Paty, was beheaded in broad daylight because he showed the cartoons to his class as part of a civics lesson about free speech. Soon enough, church bells rang out across France. A 70-year-old woman had been decapitated and two of her fellow worshippers murdered in a Catholic church in Nice. It was not the first of its kind, of course. Everyone should remember the priest beheaded as he celebrated Mass in 2016. But Paty became a symbol. As Macron memorialised, he had become the face of the Republic, on the front line, teaching the next generation to be French citizens, Republicans, capable of free thought. The perverse reaction of Muslim leaders, the mob, and the English language press did not go amiss. With a magnificent sleight of hand, cynical figures like Turkey's President Erdogan and Pakistan's Imran Khan managed to paint France as the villain. They're Islamophobes who have provoked Muslims, and if they want peace, they must cease and desist. Cease, that is, to be France. Days before the attack on the Nice church, the Turkish Minister for Culture and Tourism tweeted at Charlie Hebdo in French, "You are bastards, you are sons of bitches." Countries across the Arab world boycotted French goods and removed them from their shelves. In London, protesters carried banners that read, "Insult is not freedom of speech," and screamed, "Shame on you," at Louis Vuitton. The Organisation of Islamic Cooperation and its 57 member states followed Pakistan with a boycott. In no time, #NeverTheProphet was trending alongside #Islamophobia. The Turkish government accused France of attacking Islam, and Erdogan said Macron needed mental treatment. Imran Khan said that Macron's defence of the cartoons deliberately provoked Muslims. Just as a campaign of hatred was stirred up against Paty, Muslim leaders knowingly agitated against the entire nation and, by association, other European countries too. France has now rightly recognised the Turkish president's comments as declarations of violence. What followed was a spate of attacks, including in Austria, 4 murdered and 14 injured by an Islamist gunman starting outside of the city's main synagogue. In the same week, just like King Louis Philippe, Erdogan, with his caliph complex in full view, announced that he was going after the Dutch politician Geert Wilders, like so many others, for insulting the president after he posted a cartoon of him. This is about more than a clash over free speech and its limits. This, as so many people have already pointed out, is about sovereignty. Who gets to decide, the Republic or the Islamists, whether France is allowed to be France? Despite the intimidation, Macron has shown himself to have a remarkable backbone. He refused to disavow the cartoons, even if others recoil. He insisted that France would continue to strongly proclaim the concept of laïcité, to nurture a love for the Republic, and to fight for freedom and reason as Samuel Paty did. What other world leader would respond so positively and robustly, saying that the French love their country, nation, geography, landscape, history, and culture? Outside the French embassy in London, after Christians had been beheaded in their place of worship, protesters shouted, "Respect Islam." The hypocrisy was astounding. Talk of Islamophobia and oppression while demanding that France give up the sacred values of the Republic, according to the rules dictated from abroad. Let's not forget that Turkey locks up political opponents and jails journalists. Erdogan talks about religious persecution and provocations while turning the most symbolic former church in Christendom, Hagia Sophia, into a mosque. Meanwhile, Pakistan executes people for blasphemy and only last month sentenced a Christian to death for sending derogatory remarks about Muhammad in a text message. Imran Khan is constantly pushing for more censorship of blasphemy beyond his borders under the guise of Islamophobia. However, with their crooked attempts to spin an unjust narrative, they've shown their cards. As the government of Pakistan recently tweeted, quoting Prime Minister Imran Khan, "Blasphemy in the garb of freedom of expression is intolerable." It's clearer now more than ever that European leaders, very much too late in the day, need to wake up and stand with France as robust defenders of our hard-won liberties, and that the people of Europe should feel entitled to draw as many pictures as they like of Imran Khan, President Erdogan, and certain religious figures, as whatever fruit they fancy, because blasphemy laws have no place on this continent.